Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey with creativity.
Well, yeah, I'm Kallie, or on Instagram known as K-Star. I like to think my content is K-Star quality, so hence the name. I guess I've always liked art. I used to draw a lot growing up, and my dream was always to be a children's book illustrator. And then I got to my A-levels, and it turns out that I'm much better at communicating my vision with a camera than with my hands doing drawings. So I started to pursue more digital work using photography and videography, and I haven't turned back.
Nice. So you said you liked art. What was your earliest memory of appreciating the artistic side of things, of yourself, or a piece of art, or something that inspired you early on in your journey?
Well, I've still got my mum still has a piece of art I made. I think it must have been in nursery even. It was like a clay molding thing that she's still got hanging up in the house. So I guess when I see stuff like that, it just reminds me that it's always been something that I've enjoyed, and it's been appreciated and encouraged. Yeah, so Disney, I would say, is probably my biggest influence in terms of growing up, what I was inspired by the most, because I watch a lot of Disney. I still do.
What's your favourite Disney film?
Well, I guess it'd have to be Lion King. It's forever been my favourite. Like, I used to watch it on repeat. I can just watch it and sit and watch it in my brain. So I guess it's my...
What's your favourite line from Lion King?
I guess it's got to be Hakuna Matata, but I don't really apply it very well. But
what does that mean?
It means no worries.
For the
rest of your days.
For the rest of your days. Oh, yeah.
But I haven't applied that problem-free philosophy yet, so I need to work on that again.
Gotcha. Cool. So, we're exploring this week, obviously, creativity and the role it can play in kind of supporting communities and our community. What role has, I guess, creativity played maybe in your own development personally? And what role do you think it can play in kind of helping our community as a whole?
I guess kind of in my adult years in creativity, I use creativity a lot to address issues that are often hard to talk about. So I guess I've done topics on self-esteem, teenagers and self-image. I've done stuff around kind of bad experiences in the past and like forgiveness, and kind of disconnect from community, disconnect from God. I'm currently, I've looked at kind of sexual abuse as well. There's like lots of different friendships, relationships. I find that when you can kind of see an image, it can speak a lot for you and say quite a lot. So I think that's the main thing I use my creativity for, is to speak and put a message across. That's something I often think about, and I've been taught to think about, is what are you saying with your art? What statement are you trying to make? What are you trying to make people think about? So I try to make work that is universal. So I might have a specific topic, but I want it to be put out there in a way that people can resonate with it within their own issues and their own things they're thinking about. It doesn't have to be that specific topic. So I think for the community, creativity can really be used to make space for those taboo topics, and make them okay, basically, but by putting them, sometimes making them look beautiful as well, like addressing a difficult topic in an appealing way, and make it more approachable, I suppose. Because sometimes those hard topics we're kind of like, oh, I don't really want to go near that. But if you can kind of address it and portray it in a more appealing way.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great way to start conversations. You know, people walk around galleries and are talking all the time, like we see it a lot, that art prompts conversation.
Yeah.
I like it when it prompts conversations that are really valuable and can make change.
Awesome. So when you create art, or when you create art for yourself, do you approach it in the same manner as when you create art for clients, or for who you're working for, or do you take that same approach despite for who you are creating the content for? Is it always about communication? Is it always about challenging something, or presenting something in a new light? Like what, or do you change depending on the client?
I don't think it's always about communication,
Mm-hmm.
but I do. People say mixed things about photography, especially that some people say that photography is like the truth, like it just reveals exactly what's there, and
Mm-hmm.
some think it's all staged, so you can never believe a photo because you don't know what the work's
Mm-hmm.
been put in before you take the picture.
Yes.
So I think a constant flow in my work for others and myself is that it is the truth. It's not a stage thing. I'm team candid, so I like to take
Team
pictures of what's
candid.
not.
What's team candid? What do you mean team candid? What do you mean?
So,
Tell us more.
so candid photography, where you take pictures of what's actually just naturally happening, rather than staging it and having someone model something and pose for a picture. So none of the kind of say cheese or move over that way a little bit or fix your shirt. Like if your shirt is crooked, your shirt is crooked. Obviously, if
Interesting.
I'm something a bit different, I will. But generally, I try to work with people that are happy to kind of present themselves as they are. But I take it as my job to show them in their best light, in their best natural light, I guess. But I do that in my own work as well. I do a lot of very authentic, I guess, vulnerable work, whether it's about myself or others. I try to explore topics that are below the surface, even though what you'll see is only surface level through the photo. What I try to capture is a bit deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I guess, so you think that age-old adage, does life imitate art, or does art imitate life? For you, you prefer when art is, I guess, imitating life, right? Rather than creating a picture. You prefer it to, as you say, to capture things as they are, or
I'm a documenter rather than a
yeah.
creator, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So documenting things, which is an interesting concept, because when people want a picture taken, or they want to, they want a video created, or they want whatever, they want their best side to be presented, right? Don't they? They don't want, why, what's the need to present? It's like if you go to a job interview, you don't present the whole side of yourself. You present the best version of yourself, right? What's wrong with that? If we're all in this together. We all know that's what's going on. Even when we go to an interview, the interviewer knows that when they say to you, okay, so what's your biggest flaw? And you turn around and say, my biggest flaw is that I work too hard. Like, we all know that we're in this game together. We all know. And isn't that similarly the case when it comes to art as well? Like, if it's a picture I put up on Instagram where, I look blemish free, and I of course I am blemish free in real life, but the point is that, like, we all know surely that this is a presentation of my best self, not my always self. Don't we know that?
I suppose, but I guess it's kind of when you leave things open to the imagination, like you only know what you know. So if you're only ever showing the perfectly filtered or makeup covered self on Instagram,
Yes.
Yeah, we can think, oh, surely they don't look like that all the time. But it's never, it's like the kind of innocent until proven guilty, like beautiful until proven ugly, basically. Like, if, does that make sense? If I never see
Beautiful until
ugly, then I
proven
can't say, wow,
ugly.
can I
Wow.
just assume that? I'm sure people do to make themselves feel better, but I think that's more how it works in our brains when we see stuff online. It's more, yeah, beautiful until
Beautiful.
proven.
Do you think that people are so online? You think when people? So what do you mean by that? Elaborate. Beautiful until proven ugly. What do you mean?
That if all you ever put out is your
Best.
beautiful,
Yeah.
you know, quote,
Yes.
it,
Yes.
and you never put up a rough looking picture, or we never see you on your story looking a bit rough, then I can't, there's no proof of it. Like I can't confidently say that there's a time you don't look as good.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if it was innocent until proven guilty. Like if there's no proof of the bad thing, then surely you're just good all the time. And you know, it's hard to believe, but it's just how we have to work. We can't just live on assumptions. Well, we can. I think that's very useful.
We've got a comment here. Beauty is in the eye of. We've got a comment here. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I guess so.
What do you think about that?
That's the person that makes the decision, isn't it? It's that judgment there of beautiful or not beautiful. Obviously, you can look at yourself and be the beholder of yourself and say whether you're beautiful or not. But yeah, I think with candid photography and videography and stuff, it's not about showing their can't see the real person, always hiding under a mask. Yeah, exactly. And I try to make people feel safe enough to not have to wear a mask, and capture them in a way that makes them feel good about themselves without having to put stuff on top of themselves or a certain way or put a certain light on. I take pride in the fact that I take pictures of people who say they don't like having their picture taken, and they see a photo that I've taken, they're like, oh, that's actually nice. It's like, yeah, because you do look nice. Like it's not just, yeah, I can take a good photo, but it's not just that. It's also that you have a lovely smile. Like everyone's natural smile, I think, is nicer than their photography smile. Some people's photo smile is not good. It's
What's your photo smile? What's your photo smile? That's your photo smile. Okay. What's your normal smile?
They're pretty much the same. Pretty much must.
That's too funny. That's
too
funny.
A lot of people look awkward when they smile for a picture. So I've kind of,
because it's not natural.
Smile naturally, yeah. Well, that's because it only takes when I'm actually happy. So that's a whole nother thing. Again, with stage pictures, is you can be trying to make someone look happy when they're really not. Whereas with a candid one, if you're not smiling, you're not smiling. I can't make you smile. Yeah, I might have a conversation with you to make you smile a little bit, but not. I can't force you to be happy, and I don't want to do that.
So I just want to get this straight. So you take a picture of, let's say, a birthday party, right? And the person whose birthday is, they're really not very happy because that just before the party started, they had the cake. It was a fresh cream cake with kind of quite a few layers, fresh cream and unpasteurized eggs and veal and I don't know. And anyway, it's in this cake, and the cake, I don't know. The cake was meant to be kept at a certain temperature, and lo and behold, someone tripped over the wire which was connecting the fridge to the power main earlier that day. Tripped over it. Thought they switched it back on, but when they put it back in, they switched it on. But they did switch it on, but they turned it up too high, the temperature on the fridge. So the cake, what happened was the cake became a solid mass, right? Because of the frozen, because the freezer was too cold. So then, anyway, the cake looked fine. No one knew. It comes to cut into cake. Boom, they cut into the cake. The cake's ice, right? But the blade hits the ice, and the cake it does like a kind of noise.
Yeah.
and the cake is no longer edible. And so now the person whose birthday it was, let's call her Sandra. Sandra's cake is now no good. And so now for the rest of the evening, Sandra's face, her whole persona, she's deflated, she's despondent, she's just like, she's had it. And so now, if you are to capture that in its reality, the reality is she's disappointed, she's upset, she's anguished, and that's what her face looks like the majority of the afternoon. Are you going to give her photos in a few days' time with those pictures? You're going to be like, well, these are the moment that you bit into that cake, and ever since then, the last 20 photos or the 30 photos you submit to her are of her being absolutely demoralized because you want it to be authentic.
Well, I probably, to be honest, what I would probably do if she wasn't very happy, I would focus on her guests after that and not photograph her. But at the same time, I could just ask her and say, do you want me to carry on taking photos? Like, I think it's important to build relationship with the people I photograph. I think that helps me to capture them better naturally, if I can move with them. So I would probably have a conversation with her, because obviously taking pictures of her with a sour face is not very nice. Like, no one wants that.
But it's but this is the thing, but it's authentic. And really, I say all this to say because I think there's something quite interesting here, that artists and creatives, especially, again, looking at our community, like, we need creatives who are willing to capture things out as they are, right? Even now, as everything's going on in society and so forth, it's not all rosy at the moment. There are negative things happening on all fronts, right? And we actually do need creatives to be willing to, in whatever art form they use, whether they're conversation, whether they're like, their art is conversation, like they're good at speaking, whether their art is, their creativity is drawing, is whatever, in whichever way they are creative. I think it's important for the time in which we're living in and the future that which we're moving into to be captured in truth, right? So I think it's an interesting thing you're posing, especially when we also bring that together with the fact that with social media, the conversation that constantly is going on with social media is that people aren't presenting the true sides of themselves. And because of that, some people say it's affecting our mental health, and it's affecting young people's mental health, and especially for women, and this, this fake image that is being presented of what a perfect woman is, or what a woman should look like, and all of these things, right? Now more than ever, it's important for us to have our creatives capture like how things are, even if it's like for a time capsule moment, right? So I think you're onto something with that, right? And thinking about, I guess, the last few months, lockdown, Black Lives Matter, all this thing that's going on. What would a picture look like now if you were to put a picture together right now of like a snapshot, your photo, or let's say you put together a little video, like a little mini 2-minute docu episode, like what do you think it would look like right now in this time we're living in through the creative lens?
I'd probably I'm just thinking about, my first thought was like the empty tubes, and stuff like that. I think that's quite, like, I've sat on a few trains now when there's really no one there, and it's quite like, oh, this is weird. Horror.
A horror film.
I think a way to capture the distance is the main thing. Like the distance that's been, I feel like, even with, obviously we've got Corona that's making us socially distance.
Yeah.
We've got Black Lives Matter, and I think that's really kind of separating people in a way, with like our kind of the race divide, I suppose. It's kind of making people feel more distant or
Mm.
just more awkward, I guess. It's a hard topic to explore.
Mm-hmm.
Some people may be avoiding it, which kind of
Yes.
pulls you away from people as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know exactly how, but I would like to, I guess the main thing is present that distance. So I
Okay.
interview people and hear their voices.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of voice, so I would probably use that
Something
in,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, incorporate that. That's amazing. And I want to know if do you? It's interesting actually that the I can't remember is like the treasurer, the money guy, the finance guy at the government. Yeah, I forgot the dude's name, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Rishi, I think is his name. There was an article I saw recently that he was saying, you know, creatives might need to retrain. I don't know if I sent you the article, but this idea of like musicians, creatives might need to retrain in this new world that we're going into. What does the world look like with creatives who are now working in some other field, or who are now, you know, executives in a company, or working in Tesco's, or an accountant, or like, what does a world look like where that is stripped of its art, of its creatives? Can you picture that world?
Well, to be honest, my first thought was that working at Tesco would be a lot more fun.
Than what?
Than what it is now. Like, because I think I think everybody can be creative in different ways when they let themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But just because you're not doing I guess a more artistic job,
Yeah.
won't be creative in those different spaces.
Yes.
So I kind of just imagine it being like those spaces becoming a lot more colourful, like or in grey office becoming really bright and exciting and that kind of stuff. Because
interesting.
I think
so you're seeing it, rather than the absence of the art, you're seeing it that the artists have now entered into spaces that they wouldn't usually be in, and then potentially transforming that with their creative outlook. A very creative answer.
Yeah, I think it'd be a shame if, you know, the traditional creative stuff wasn't being made, but I think where we'd end up, we would spruce it up. I'm just seeing a lot of colour. Like, I see colourful offices and just fun, you know, like interesting team building activities and just stuff that would make people's jobs more interesting, because they've got more of an outpour of creativity, and people that are more actively creative will want an outlet as well. But at the same time, if creatives were told to kind of retrain in something else, I wonder if there would be more personal art coming out. Because
what do you mean by personal art?
A lot of times people that are creative for a living then don't have much, or say they don't have much time to create stuff for themselves. If they had a job in accounting, that they would just make more personal art, and that would be out in the world. We see a lot more personal stuff rather than money stuff, money making, which would be interesting.
No, that's real. No, that's real interesting. That's real talk. Because at the end of the day, that's always the challenge, isn't it? That's always part of the challenge when it comes to creativity. And we spoke a bit about it with Bobby yesterday. Just this idea of when creativity has to be also it's the means which you use to create a living and a revenue and income for yourself. You might not even feel like doing that piece of art for yourself. Like, I know people who are plumbers, builders, different tradesmen, but they don't want to do it on their own house. Like, they come home and they're like, no, I'll get someone else. To come and do it in my own house. I do it every day, mate. I do it all day, mate. I ain't coming home and, you know, flaming, knocking up this door. Like, no, mate, I'm getting someone else to come and, you know, hook it up. Like, my neighbours like that, in fact. So I think that's quite interesting, that idea of, being able to create space for yourself to do more personal art. And here's another question for you. So we've got this idea of now, creatives making more personal art. We've got creatives now maybe sprucing up areas and entering sectors in life where they wouldn't normally be, right? But do you feel as though, do you think in the time in which we live, like right now, do you think there's a specific role that like creatives have in terms of, you know, the movement, in terms of, you know, this month is all about Black Future Month. Like what future would you like to see for us as Black creatives? And your experience as a mixed race, a woman of color, creative, what have you noticed? Do you think there's been any specific parts of your journey or story where you thought to yourself, it's because I'm, well, either positive or negative, it's because I'm mixed race, it's because I'm of color? Take the last bit first and the first bit last.
Have I experienced that? I haven't really personally experienced it, but I think I've seen it when I was studying. So I studied photography and video at uni. I had a few
Did you have to do a dissertation for that, or?
Nope.
Oh, God.
No, my longest essay in my whole degree was 3,000 words. And that was a struggle. But yeah, we had a final project, but not a written dissertation. We asked them, like, we got a dissertation? They said, why would we want to mark a dissertation? Why would we want to read that?
That's too funny. Well, maybe for the gram, just take a picture, marking the dissertation.
Yeah.
Top marks.
I haven't myself, but I think that's because I haven't really explored my identity with regards to my race very much, or my culture like that very much in my art. Whereas in some of my peers that are Black did specifically explore that part of their identity, which I think a lot of, in my experience just growing up, I've seen a lot of young Black people explore being Black in their art. It's just something they do. And I found that people found it hard to kind of relate to or understand or appreciate, which I would imagine would be quite disheartening. You know, when you're in a space, you know, especially here in the UK, I think art is a very kind of white space, especially in the education system. It's a very white space. And I don't know if that's because, you know, people say that, you know, you can't study art because there's no jobs in it. But, you know, the academic, there's different cultural pressures. I know I have friends that have said, you know, their parents have come to England for them and their career, their education, and it's like the pressure on them. So they have to do academically. So, yeah, I just found there's not a lot of Black people in art spaces in education. So I think that kind of can be quite isolating. But I personally haven't experienced that in a negative way. I got my final project at university featured a lot of young Black men, and I actually won an award for a photograph I took of a young Black man. And why they chose it was because they said that, again, with this whole authenticity thing, they were saying that they don't often see a strong Black man portrayed in such a vulnerable way. And they were moved by that and won the award. And I really appreciated that, because it's like, that's exactly what I'm talking about, is the stereotype that we kind of build up because of what we're putting out there all the time.
Yes.
See something different, it's actually quite moving and powerful. I've seen it in a positive way, but in terms of what I want to see for the future, wasn't it, of Black creatives, I would like to see more, I guess, within education, more artists, Black artists, examples, like all the famous people that you have to kind of when you're studying art, you have to kind of copy lots of different artists. And at the beginning in school, they give you artists, they show you people, they're like, these are all the famous ones. Copy these people and then figure out what your thing is. But they're not people. So, or they're not even, you know, they're not black people, and the art they're making has not got that representation in it. It'd be really nice to see more of that. Future, find ways to feed that in more, make that more accessible. And I guess, I think, to be honest, I would like it if black people, when they were making art, it wasn't expected of them to make stuff about being black.
Right.
Makes sense? Like, I want it to be not a thing. It's great to celebrate it. But I want it to be like, you can do it about anything, because you don't have to, like, everyone already knows that, if that makes sense.
No, that makes complete sense.
Art to teach people stuff or show them something they haven't seen before, insight on something, whereas they were already aware of these different elements of a black culture, black identity. They wouldn't need to see the art because they get it. I would love to. I don't feel that need, that that's all that they can express, because that's what people need to know the most. I'd love it if they was kind of more equal. Like, how often do you see a white person making art about English culture or being white? It's just not it's not like the agenda to make sure everyone understands what it's like for them to be white. We love it so equal that there wasn't a difference, so it wasn't like, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. I think the challenge is, obviously, you know, that with you know, the predominant demographic of society, when you're the predominant kind of when you're the dominant culture in society, it's a lot easier to feel your place, right? And I think that's interesting. Like, as an artist who is from the minority, you will quickly see that, for one, the representation isn't necessarily there, as you said, in the textbooks and things like that. The representation isn't there in your actual class, in terms of the people you're looking at left and right every day. And so the real challenge is kind of like how to, without seeing that representation, without seeing a role model, without seeing something to emulate, like, how do you even know that you can be that spark for someone else? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you even know how to start speaking into that? How do we begin to, let me change the question a bit. How do you feel that we start to speak into this issue that you're talking about creativity, diverse creativity in our education spaces? Where would you start if you were the Minister of Education working with Boris Johnson? He's, you know, and he's very clear now. He said clearly, go to work, don't go to work, don't go to work, go to work. He's clear on the issue, right? There's no confusion. And you work for him as Minister of Education. How would you begin to turn the screw? How would you begin to turn the corner on affecting or creating a situation where there is more diversity within art in the education system?
I would call upon freelancers, I think, because
tell me more.
I can't force people of color to become art teachers and go and become art teachers. But I think it can be very inspiring for young people to kind of have almost like flash in the pan exposure to stuff. So I would maybe like commission for freelancers to go into schools and do short-term workshops. Freelancers that are people of color and black especially, so that if there are students in the room that are black, they are literally themselves as an accomplished artist. Like, you can do it, it's fine to do it. And also different types of creativity as well. So like I said, I think I was just kind of thinking about that idea I was saying about a lot of Black art is about being Black. And I think, in a way, I think that is like a barrier, because some people might see that as not being universal enough to put in the system. So as a 14-year-old white male,
Yeah.
being an artist who a Black woman who a Black female artist who just makes art about, I don't know, African print,
Yeah.
for example,
Yeah.
like, or even more specific, just like being a Black woman.
Right.
Like, well, how do we art about that? Whereas the artists that they show you do explore lots of different topics and lots of issues. So it's like, okay, well, you either like how they do it or you like what they're saying.
Yes.
So, you know, if you don't necessarily get on with what it looks like, but you like what they go off that. But
yeah,
I guess it's just potentially just so different for them that it's just like, well, I don't like how it looks, and I don't like what they're saying, or I don't get it, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that as well. So looking for and encouraging Black artists to explore, yes, their Black identity in their art, but the rest of their life.
Yeah. Holistic.
Yeah, there's more to everybody than the color of their skin, and so I just think I would encourage other Black artists to explore other areas of their life through their art and just try it. I think freelancers would be the way to go, and just show people, just something different, and just different. Talk about a topic maybe you haven't talked about before, and if they want to bring in, if they have art that's about being Black and the issues surrounding that, or just celebrating it, that's great as well, because the more the merrier, because we know there's not a lot of that in the British education system. So that's good too. And again, like I said, art can be an interesting way to start these conversations without it being too direct or too intimidating. You know, to put a piece of art in front of a group of teenagers that's about Black identity will probably provoke some kind of conversations that they probably wouldn't normally have in the canteen, or
but this is the thing, do you think that because it's interesting, you said a bit earlier that other people of color that were on your course, they did the art that they did was specifically about kind of their identity, right? Do you think but whereas your art, even though your art might not have been an exploration of your identity in that way, as a person of color who is creating, straight away everything that you create is a work kind of about your identity in a strange way? Does it have to be as direct as saying, here is a print from, my hometown in Nairobi? Like, does it have to be so on the nose like that for it to be as powerful? Or is it just whatever you have created, whatever work we look at that you have created, it's the work of a person of color? Do you know what I mean? Or do you think it has less je ne sais quoi, if it's not specifically about, okay guys, so here's a drawing of, this riot that took place, or here's a drawing of, the Black Lives Matter march, or here's a picture from John Boyega speaking, do you know what I mean? Does it have to be so on the nose in that way for it to be as effective? Or the fact that, as I say, you are a person of color creating something in itself, it is of importance to the community?
I guess it depends what you're trying to say with your art, as to whether you need to be so on the nose and direct, or you can do it more broadly. So I guess as soon as you're not like if I take a picture of, let's say I was a nature photographer, I take pictures of flowers. I hate that, but let's say that's what I did.
You hate taking pictures of flowers?
Yeah, it's not my thing. I like people.
Fair enough.
Sunsets and swans, girl. But if I take pictures of stuff like that, yes, I'm a person of color taking the pictures, but no one's going to know that unless I tell them. You know,
Okay.
I have an English surname. I don't. You know, my dad is from Ghana. My mum is from England. I don't have any. None of my names are associated with Ghana. Or
Kallie's
Africa.
not a Ghanaian name, no? No? You sure? All right.
So it's like, you know, some people put their name on a piece of art and it's like, oh, well,
Oh, you know. I get it. Yeah. All right. Okay.
For me,
Yeah.
it's not got that label, that mark. So I would have to tell people or be in it myself for people to know. And a lot of my work, I'm not in it. So I like to tell people stories, so I'm not in it a lot. So yeah,
so that final piece. So for example, your final piece that you did, and it was documenting the stories of black. Well, there were a lot of portraits of black men.
Yeah,
Do you think your work automatically suggested that it was created by a black creative, or would it be yeah? Do you think it was automatically like, oh, this must be a black creative because it's pictures of black people? Do you see what I'm saying?
Probably.
And likewise, the other individuals that were on your course, when you look at their work, you think it was clear. It was like, no, this is the work of a black creative. And do you think creative work can be kind of separated like that so easily? Because I mean, just because you take a picture of a portrait of a black person, that doesn't mean a black person took it, does it?
No, it doesn't. Like I experienced that recently. I found some children's books that had illustrations of black children in them, but the author is white, and I was so surprised. I just assumed I assumed the author was going to be black, but he's not. It was a very pleasant surprise. I was like, oh, that's refreshing. But yeah, I think it is an assumption. I don't think that's a right assumption to make. Because then it's kind of like, well, black people photograph black people and white people photograph white people.
Yes, it's a bit weird. And is that even really art? We can only take pictures of, you know, our people or our culture. Isn't that you know? Because the beauty, and that's what I think the beauty of creativity is, seeing the world through the lens of the person who's created the art. But that doesn't. They shouldn't be shackled as to what they present, right? It's just whatever they want to present to the world through their eyes. No? Yes?
Yeah.
But then 100%. I still
100%.
think, but don't get me wrong, I like to see our community being able to translate what they're saying through a creative lens. And through your studies, again, because you know you've referenced it a few times, do you think your creativity was enhanced, or your ability to tell stories and capture moments was enhanced by your studies?
It helped me to refine. I refer to myself as an image maker, so it helped me refine what type of image maker I am. Like these values that I said about candid photography and authenticity, I think by studying it helped me refine that. Right. I think it was already coming through as I was getting older, but it really helped me refine it. And it kind of gave me the confidence. Like I remember in my first year of my degree, we did a really simple project that was just like a profile of somebody. And my lecturer said to me that I have a rare ability to make people feel comfortable in front of the camera and be themselves. Right. And I got onto that. And that was literally like the first term of my degree. And I still remember it. And it stuck with me.
So you didn't need to go back after that, really, then?
Done deal. Yeah.
You got the gold.
I did. I pushed it, and I pushed it, and I used that throughout my degree. And now, like, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I do put people at ease, even though I've got a camera in their face. And that's how I capture them naturally in a good way, because they feel comfortable to do so. So I think, I may have come to that conclusion by myself eventually. But I think it was a good space for me to build my confidence. I was a bit of a newbie to photography when I started studying it. Before I started my degree, I'd only actively been doing photography like consistently for about a year. So I was still very new to it. I didn't have a lot of confidence there. I've been a creative like as long as I can remember, but not a photographer. So, taught me how to take a good photo, and helped me to just explore and use my voice through my photography and express other people's voices through my photography. Definitely beneficial for me.
Cool. So what advice would you have for the image makers here on this call, who are eager to, start using their voice and to kind of share their voice through their images? Like what are your top 3 tips that you could give someone who would, who's trying, who's on that journey?
I think the idea that there's other people who have experienced what you've experienced, or are going to experience what you've experienced. So if you can encapsulate that and put it out there to the world in a creative way, you received that, then you can potentially help somebody. Seeing someone else put their story out there can be quite encouraging, if you can relate to it. I think just remembering that although your experience is very unique, and that's what makes it powerful in itself, there are other people that will resonate with it, and that can help a lot of people. It's a great way to connect people, I think. I think also being curious. Be curious is a great way to express yourself and express the voices of others. Is just being curious and asking questions. I think being a creative opens a lot of doors for people. Like just letting people know that you're doing something for a creative project. People are like, oh, okay, sure, let's do that. Let's get involved, or sure, we'll let you in to do that. No problem. So I think being curious about yourself. I found that as I explore a personal topic for myself in a creative way, I peel off layers of it and I understand it better. So I think being curious about yourself and others is a great way to bring clarity to your voice in a creative way. And just be honest with yourself. I think there's just so many options when it comes to creativity. It's not one school, it's not one thing for everybody. You get taught the basics at school, but there's just so much. Like I remember we had one lesson where we painted with melted chocolate, one of the best lessons I've ever had. A
tasty lesson, that's for sure.
It was very good. But the point is, whatever works for you, that's what you're going to make the best art with. For me,
chocolate definitely works for me. So yeah.
So yeah, I did paintings with chocolate. I did ones with tea and coffee for my final project for that time. Like it inspired me to carry on with textures like that. So just figuring out and being true to yourself. Like I just hate like staged photo shoots. I just don't like that. So I don't do that. A lot of my peers did that, and they still do that for a job now, and it's great for them. But it's just
what they enjoy.
Not me. Yeah. So just doing what you enjoy, you're going to make the best content when you're doing something you enjoy, rather than just because you can. Don't do stuff because you can. Do stuff because, and you obviously will be able to do that stuff. So yeah, I'd say.
Love it. We're wrapping up now, but what are you working on anything now that maybe our lovely listeners, our lovely viewers could maybe connect with you on, or could be part of? You got anything on the horizon? Any way we can learn some of your tips and tricks, or get some of your teachings or anything like that?
Well, I'm now starting to do photography coaching. So
Okay.
teaching people and helping people to build their photography confidence, so they can use photography in their everyday and capture
Okay.
in their personal lives.
Cool.
That's one thing I do.
How would we find out more about that if we wanted to get involved? If we wanted our own photography coach.
So in my bio for this Instagram account, I have a link to my media account, which is Kallie Wheeler Media. And there's more
How do you spell
details
that?
on there. Do you want me to put it in the comments?
Yeah, good idea. Then I can pin it to the top. Yeah. Next time we'll do it at the beginning. That way it will stay pinned to the top for the whole conversation. So you're doing some photography coaching, and so what? By the time we finish in that course, I'll know how to take K-star quality photos. Is that what you're saying?
That's the plan. You'll know how,
Yeah.
and hopefully have the confidence to actually give it a go as well.
Nice.
But yeah, I guess in terms of a project, at the moment I'm not doing a visual project, but I'm doing a creative project.
Oh, what? Sorry.
I would still argue that it's a creative project. It's just
Okay, cool.
It's not visually creative.
Go on.
So at the moment, I'm preparing to do a workshop with a group called Global Potluck. Also, you can find them here on Instagram, Global Potluck. And I'm going to be doing a interactive workshop exploring Tamar's story in the Bible. Tamar was a young woman who got raped by her half-brother. Messy stuff. But basically I'm going to be exploring it to explore the issue of sexual assault, especially in the church environment. So, and I say that's creative because I'm doing it in a similar style to what I did for my final major project at university that I mentioned before, which was, again, it was actually surrounded around a Bible story. So it's kind of looking at Bible stories in a different way, putting ourselves inside the stories and seeing what comes out. And I'm hoping that I really want to do a visual project as well. I just haven't quite figured out how I want to do it yet. So that's something, if that's something that you're passionate about or is something that's personal to you that you want to explore, I'm doing that at the end of November. So
and we can find out all about that. We can find out all about that at your normal. And we've got a comment here. Very brave. That sounds like an amazing project. Very brave. Cool. And it's true. Being creative isn't only about, as you say, the images you create, but even these stories. Telling stories is creative, isn't it? And working through stories is creative. Thank you so much for being part of Black Future Month. Of course, you are involved on a daily basis, helping us create content, creating the content, creating the visuals and all of that. So, your work is definitely much appreciated here at Templeway and has been there for the last year or so. And, we're interested to see what else you got cooking this month, and we're interested to hear more about your Tamar project and getting involved in your teaching, in your coaching. So yeah, just keep us informed of what's going on, and keep allowing your creativity to tell people stories and to tell your story, and keep exploring through your creativity. As I keep saying, I believe that the future of the Black community, of people of African descent, people that the African diaspora, I believe that creativity and art and telling our stories is just going to be so important in the future that we're creating, because again, the stories that we've been hearing and the stories that have been told haven't been as accurate as they could have been, and have been nefarious, as we've said a few times over this week. And so I'm excited for the stories you're going to create and tell. And thank you so much. and we'll see you on the flip side. If you've got any final thoughts, final words you want to tell us, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to reinforce something Bobby said yesterday, that everybody is creative and you can be creative in whatever space you're in. Just go for it. Just see what comes out. I think everyone benefits from other people's creativity, so don't hold back. Yeah.
Boom. Thank you so much, Kallie.